So what are agents actually, and who gets to decide what they can do? That's exactly the kind of question that's been floating around in my head these past few days. After a lot of testing and a ridiculous number of hours working with the Google Flow agent and other platforms, I ended up with one pretty telling takeaway. Everyone kind of makes up their own definition. What worked really well with the Runway agent was being guided through individual AI-supported steps to get the best possible video result. And that's exactly what I wanted to put to the test in this tutorial as well. Before I show you exactly what I did, let me first play two short videos, each just under 30 seconds, that after a lot of back and forth, at least kind of capture what I had in mind. Are they perfect? Of course not. Was the process easy? Absolutely not. Did I try alternative routes? Oh yes. And that's where I ran into quite a few limits of the Google Flow agent. So at this point, as a user, I'd like to throw a few questions into the room. Why does the platform generate images that later get rejected during further processing because they're supposedly not allowed? Just so we're clear, I'm not talking about images I uploaded myself. I'm talking about images that Nano Banana Pro or Nano Banana 2 created on its own. Why do I keep getting error messages saying images were deleted or that something went wrong? Why does the Flow agent sometimes create something completely different, even when the instructions are crystal clear? And staying motivated doesn't exactly get easier when you get those almost funny messages saying you've used up your daily quota. At that point, you really do have to stare at the screen for a second, especially when you know that quota got burned through by a steady stream of unusable results. But enough of the critical stuff. In the bigger picture, the Google Flow agent is still a seriously powerful tool, once you know what to watch out for. Okay, so let's jump straight in and look at how this whole thing works. Open Google Flow and click New Project at the bottom in the middle. After that, you'll see this empty screen. We're going to focus on the prompt bar at the bottom center first. If I simply typed in a prompt here, maybe uploaded an image reference through the plus icon, and then clicked the arrow on the right, I'd be working the old way, without the agent. And since that's not what we want, we click the agent button on the left. If the field is white, the agent is active. If the field is black, the agent is turned off. For the next steps, we keep the agent switched on. Now, if we look to the right, we see three more important icons. On the left, there are the agent instructions. Right next to them are the settings, and in the top right corner of the prompt bar, there are these two arrow icons. When I click them, a larger chat window opens. The dialog field now moves over to the right. If I click the X in the top right, this chat mode closes again. But for now, we want to stay in the larger view. The input field is still at the bottom, with the same features we just talked about, agent instructions and settings. The agent instructions are basically global instructions, visual, text-based, or both, that the AI can keep referring to throughout the entire chat, so you don't have to upload the same stuff again and again. The Flow agent pulls its information from there on its own. And yeah, the more detailed these instructions are, the better. But at the same time, you do have to be a little careful, because this is also where contradictions can sneak in and make the AI stumble. For example, if you upload an image that shows different versions of the same person in different outfits and different environments, maybe half hidden behind other similar-looking people and covered by random objects, then yeah, it's pretty obvious that conflicts can happen. So don't clutter up the instructions with too much messy stuff. Just feed it the key basics, meaning the important grids for characters and/or objects that actually matter for the scenario. And on top of that, it also makes sense to define style references and photographic details there, as long as those things are supposed to stay consistent across the whole project. In this example, I click on Reference on the left, upload a fitting grid for my character, and describe the distinctive traits of the person or object. It also helps to give the instruction a title, because that makes it much easier to refer to later in plain text. Then, I confirm the change of the title with the checkmark icon. You can also create multiple agent instructions. Just click Add Instruction. With the toggle button in the top left, you can switch individual instructions on or off. And with the trash icon, you can delete them again if you don't need them anymore. Whether you click Done at the bottom or the back arrow in the top left doesn't really matter. Your instructions are saved either way. And by the way, once you go back to the normal chat mode, the white highlighted icon will show you that instructions are already there. The second icon in the prompt bar is the settings icon. Click it, and a whole row of options opens up. The first one is about cost, because this is where you decide whether the AI should always ask first if you really want to run the generation, or whether it should just go ahead. The two options are always and never. Especially when it comes to video, it's pretty important to know what the thing you're about to create is actually going to cost, so I leave this set to always. Below that, you get the settings for image and video. In both cases, you can choose the aspect ratio, the number of outputs, and the model. As of today, for images that means Nano Banana Pro or Nano Banana 2, and for video it's VEO 3.1 in its different versions, plus Omni Flash. We'll get back to the image model in a second, but for the agent, when it comes to video, the Omni Flash model is the key one, because that's the model that unlocks the newest features. And this part really matters. What you see here are global settings for image and video, so always say exactly what you want in the prompt. Nothing would be more annoying than wanting an image, while the AI decides to create a video instead, because when that happens, your credits are gone. Once you've set everything up, click Save at the bottom, and that's it. You're set up and ready to go. Now let's look at the agent chat mode. In the top left, you can use the burger menu to check the history of your agent activity. With the square and pen icon in the top right, you can start a new agent chat and define completely new instructions. Every chat starts with 3 random questions to help you get into working with the AI. You'll see things like build a visual mood board, edit a video with Omni, or develop a storyboard. Some of these suggestions are pretty pointless though, so if you already know exactly what you want, just enter the right prompt straight away and start from there. And this is where I'll repeat the earlier warning. If you don't have the Ultra plan, which is pretty expensive, you only have a limited quota for working with the agent, so don't burn through it with too many random tests, unless you're fine waiting until the next day when the quota resets. Now let's get to the prep work I used to build the film you saw at the beginning. The first big decision is which image model you want to use, because the results can look very different. And on top of that, Nano Banana Pro is also more limited in how you can use it compared to Nano Banana 2. For me, the direction was clear right away. I wanted to create a short clip about a K-pop rapper back in 1980. So, with the help of ChatGPT, I wrote a fitting prompt. One version leaning more toward an authentic 1980 look and feel, which you can see down below, and another one leaning more toward a staged festival vibe, the kind of thing you'd probably expect more from today. Those are the results in the second row. And this is also where you can really see the difference between Nano Banana Pro and Nano Banana 2. The two versions on the left were created with Nano Banana Pro. They feel more pastel-like and sometimes a bit smoother. The two on the right were made with Nano Banana 2. They're more saturated and a bit darker. For the story, this image became the starting shot that defined everything else, and that one was created with Nano Banana 2. From that image, I then built the 2 really important grids, one for the K-pop rapper and one for this stage here. Setting up the stage as a grid matters a lot because there's text visible on it, and that's the only way to give the AI proper guidance during video creation so it knows what the back wall looks like and exactly what's written there. Now the obvious question pops up. Okay, I could have done all of this without the Google Flow agent as well. But where the agent really starts to make sense is with series. I tried the difference. If I don't use agent mode and type in, give me 4 different camera angles of this shot, the AI gives me one image with 4 segments inside it. And yeah, that's basically fine. But since I want the high resolution shots, it forces me to upscale each one separately in another step. If I use the agent with the exact same prompt, I get 4 individual images right away, already in high resolution. So all I have to do is download them. Now, if we're thinking about an actual film, and not just letting the AI randomly do whatever it wants with only limited control from our side, then 4 image shots clearly aren't enough. Ideally, you want 9 or 12, either as a grid or straight away as individual images. Here you can see the grid version. The inputs were a long, fitting prompt describing the individual scenes, the starting image we just looked at, and the two grids for our main character and the stage. If I want the individual images right away, I give the agent the exact same instructions and simply add that I only want separate images. And here's another little warning, because this one cost me quite a bit of time and nerves. I'll show you the grid again that eventually became the template for the film, but originally the idea was this. The K-pop rapper performs on the beach, then gets picked up by bikers. Together, they ride to the DMZ to celebrate a cheerful event there. And as you can see here, the grid was created. But the moment I try to turn it into a video, the friendly censorship steps in. Apparently, you're not allowed to work on sensitive scenes or military-related topics. Okay, fair enough. But then why was the image created in the first place? Now it's time to tap into the full power of Omni and turn that 9-panel grid into 3 10-second multi-shot video clips. The short version of the instruction was basically this. You already know the instructions, so take the 3 images from the top row, meaning scenes 1 to 3, and turn them into a video. Then I added a few notes about camera and style, and that was supposed to be the full package for Omni. At least, that was the hopeful idea. What came out of it landed somewhere in the 50-50 category. Or, in other words, it can work, or it can totally fall apart. The video AI clearly seems to struggle with physics and logic. I mean, how else do you explain jackets somehow sliding onto bodies by themselves, bikers popping up out of nowhere, broken action sequences, or the main character suddenly appearing multiple times in the same scene? And even when the sequence itself kind of works, the result often feels rubbery, rough, and just not very natural. One thing does become pretty obvious though. The bigger the elements are in the video, the better the result tends to be. You can see that especially in the close-up of the singer at the beginning of the clip. That part is actually pretty solid. Almost everything works there, so you can tell the references do have an effect. But the smaller things get, the softer and mushier the whole thing starts to look. What really doesn't work at all, though, is logical consistency. And that's despite the fact that the AI has the exact image references right in front of it. Just look at this example. At the start, you can clearly see palm trees on the left and right behind the stage. Then, in the third multi-shot sequence, the stage is suddenly standing right next to the water, and the palm trees are gone. Even though, as we can see again in the grid, they were absolutely there in the reference. That leaves only one conclusion. With Omni, the AI starts inventing stuff instead of following the template. And then you really have to ask yourself what all that prep work was even for. One quick tip for downloading. Move your mouse over the clip you want, click the 3 little dots in the top right, choose Download, and then pick the size you want. Ideally 4K if that option is available for you. But to be honest, that still won't magically fix the slightly plastic-looking result. Let's take another look at one of the Omni versions. Once you pay attention to all the details I just mentioned, it jumps out pretty quickly. The jacket problem, the duplicated main characters, the overall very soft look and feel, and the pretty rough-looking faces whenever they get smaller in the frame. Of course, I also tried the whole thing with another video AI platform. In this case, I went with Kling Omni using Multishot. The result is far from perfect, but it feels a lot more realistic, especially the opening sequence, which is actually pretty engaging. What's especially nice is that Kling follows the images from an alternative grid surprisingly well. But even with Kling, you can still see the same kind of struggle when the jacket has to be put on in a truly realistic way. Some objects disappear, and in quite a few places things start to morph. A small tip here. Hectic, fast actions tend to morph, or maybe I should say they start to wobble and smear. So it often helps to slow down the pace in the video and keep the movements a bit more subtle. The real strength of the agent chat mode is the ongoing back and forth, where you keep developing and tweaking a sequence of images and story moments. Using the instructions already stored in the agent, I asked it to create a high-end, premium event key art poster for O/I 1980, the performance. And this is the result. Then, if I keep going in the chat and ask it to create a candid, paparazzi-style 1980s street photograph in a South Korean city, I get this. And the journey keeps moving. With the prompt, show this exact location after a storm surge, I get this version. With show this exact location 100 years in the future after nature has reclaimed the place, this is the result. And of course, you can push the story even further. Show this exact location from the same perspective 1,000 years in the future. Archaeologists are in the middle of excavating. And when you then use these 4 images as references and basically tell the agent to use the 4 provided environment images and create a person holding and reading a vintage newspaper, the past turns into the future. The singer from 1980 becomes a man holding the newspaper straight into the camera 1,000 years later. And just like that, the circle closes. I honestly have to say, working with the Google Flow agent was actually a lot of fun here, especially when you remember that this image was the starting point. Finally, one more test showing that the Google Flow agent can also do video to video. This 10-second biker sequence turned into this result with the prompt, replace all motorbikes with realistic horses. The seamless integration is actually pretty solid, but the video quality itself is more in the okay-ish range. So this is where you'd need a proper pro upscaler like Bloom, Astra, or something similar. But to be fair, Kling and Omni Flash still fall behind Seedance here, and no agent can really fix that. With Seedance 4K already available and Seedance 2.5 on the horizon, there's currently a seriously strong competitor when it comes to video quality. One last little detour when it comes to image creation and where the Google Flow agent really has an advantage. My starting image was this rather colourful guy, and if I now say in chat mode, create 4 individual images with different backgrounds, that's something it can do right away without any drama. And from there, you can keep pushing the idea further and very deliberately tell the agent to generate more images in exactly that order. Whether that's with a black t-shirt and an orange beanie, in the typical workwear of Australian construction workers, as Nostradamus, or in a quirky hand-drawn ink and watercolour illustration style. It's all there, and the nice part is that I don't have to redefine the whole setup every single time. That's actually pretty neat. So my overall takeaway is pretty simple. The agent is very good when it comes to images and concepts. When it comes to video, though, there's still room for improvement. If you want to see what else Google Flow has to offer, you can check out my tutorials on the video tools or the image tools. Alternatively, I'd also recommend the tutorial on the runway agent, because that one really does give you very solid results. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for listening. Your channel, AI. Now you know.